podcast for Furries by Furries. I'm your host, Get in the Box, and welcome to season 7 of Furry Chat. This week, I am honored to have the one, the only, the amazing UncleKage, or some people know him Dr. UncleKage. Now, I wanted to say this video did not go as planned. I had to try this twice because my computer hates me and my Wi-Fi is terrible. So I am very sorry for UncleKage for dealing with this, but I really hope you enjoyed. And I want to say, first of all, thank you to UncleKage for having so much patience with me. I really enjoyed recording with you. And if you would like to listen to the full episode, as always, it is available on Spotify. Linked below in the description. It is the first link. Boop, boop, doop. And if you enjoy my vibe, if you just subscribe, the button will be floating on screen at the end of this video. But until then, I will see you later on. And I hope you enjoy the interview. Bye-bye.
This week's guest has probably the most amount of patience for me ever. It's UncleKage.
How do you do? Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you again for coming on the show. So if past experience has been anything to go on, I'm going to just jump in. I'm going to cut all the ramble and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and what you do in the fandom.
All right. To most people, I'm known as Dr. Samuel Conway. I'm a scientist working in pharmaceutical research. In the fandom, I'm known as UncleKage. That's a moniker I've had for almost 30 years. I first joined the fandom in its online form in 1991. And since that time, I have taken the reins of a convention called Anthrocon, which seems to have grown out of control. And right now, I'm just trying to keep up with it.
You've been like in the fandom longer than they've been alive.
Oh, way to make me feel like an old man. Okay. Yeah, we use the term gray muzzle. And yeah, I think I qualify as a gray muzzle. And for newer furs, I think neo furs or new furs is a perfectly good name for those folks who have just joined us.
That wasn't my intention to make you feel old, but speaking of gray, you're like more like a sparkly gray muzzle rather than just like a gray muzzle. Because when I think gray muzzle, I just think like old dude sitting in his house at like 70, drinking his beer in one hand and having a bingo card in the other. But you're a lot cooler than that. You are a lot cooler than that.
I don't know. I think you give me a lot more credit than I deserve. I think I'm more like that 20-year-old dog that just lies on the sofa and only manages enough energy to wag his tail once a day.
You have been very involved in the furry fandom. Like I said, you've been involved since most newer furries have been, non-existent. What has that been like to see the fandom grow from its humble beginnings to the monstrosity, explosion, extraordinaire fandom it is today?
It's been an interesting transition. When I joined, it was a very insular fandom, very small, very shy, kind of hiding from its own shadow. From the early days, there have been, shall we say, aspects of our fandom that you don't necessarily show to grandma, but every fandom has those. Unfortunately, for some reason, the media has latched on to furries and acted like we're the only ones that have that sort of thing in our fandom and have painted us with the broad brush of being some sort of deviants. I don't like that. I consider this a community to be extremely proud of. There are many aspects of this community that I am thrilled to be a part of. And I sort of made it my mission to try to change people's minds about the fandom. And to a certain degree, I guess I've been successful because the image of the fandom has improved. The old story of it's a bunch of deviants and stuff sort of has gotten tired and gone by the wayside as the media and the public at large have begun to realize some of the amazingly positive things our community has to offer. And that is a much more interesting story because it's true. I've also seen us go from a fandom that was almost exclusively art-oriented to a fandom that's a lot more performance-oriented and social-oriented. we've always been a community, but our conventions now are primarily about getting together, about seeing people, about performing, about having that interaction, as opposed to, I am here to look at some property that was produced.
Mentioned there with the media and stuff, you've done a lot of panels and a lot of talks, and you've been interviewed for news and involved in This Is Life with Lisa Ling. What is that like to kind of have this, I hate to use the word persona with furry because people always think it's the same thing. Like, what's it like to have that platform, I guess, of being known in the fandom as UncleKage and being who you were?
It is very daunting, really. I've told people that I'm a big fish in an extremely tiny pond. I don't like to think of myself as a celebrity. I don't like to think of myself as something special. I grew up in the farmlands of Pennsylvania. I'm just a guy that, as I said, does what he can. And for people to treat me like a rock star and always want to talk to me and want to have my autograph, it's a lot of times I hardly know what to make of it. People will come running up to me and they'll point and they'll clap their hands over their mouths. They'll go, oh. And I'll look and say, what, is there a spider on me? Get it off. And there have been a number of times I've told people, okay, I'll tell you what, just take a deep breath, have a seat. I'll sit down too. Let's talk. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here to be admired. I'm not here to be worshipped. I'm here to hang out with you.
With Anthrocon, so you said you were very much involved in Anthrocon. How did Anthrocon start and how has it become what it is today?
Anthrocon started as Albany Anthrocon, a little tiny convention run by a bunch of college kids in the city of Albany in New York. They invited me to be their guest of honor in 1998. And I'm still not 100% sure what happened. I went up there and I walked in as guest of honor. And when I walked out, I was chairman. I got home and said, that's nice, I'm chairman. Wait. But I took the role seriously. I told them, I said, listen, if you want this thing to succeed, you can't run it like a bunch of college kids having a frat party. You're going to have to run it like a business. You need a budget, you need directorship, you need leadership, you need a management hierarchy. So I built that in. I constructed the corporate side of it. That was really all I did. I was extremely fortunate because I already had some of the most remarkably talented individuals already in the positions that I needed. So I can't say that I created Anthrocon. I inherited it. And all I did was streamline it. It was reasonably successful until we moved to the city of Pittsburgh. The relationship between the city of Pittsburgh and Anthrocon is something that is unique in our fandom. It's magical. It's like we were made for each other. The entire city of Pittsburgh gets into it, and Anthrocon has become more than just a convention. We've become an actual city festival. Pittsburgh is known now as a destination city for Anthrocon. And I believe that's one of the most unique things about it. We grew at a fairly decent clip. For a long time, we were the largest convention. We're not the largest anymore, and people give me these snide looks and say, hey, what do you think you're not the largest anymore? And, okay, listen, we never set out to be the largest. We only ever set out to be the best convention we could be. And as I said, I've got an outstanding crew, and they have never disappointed me in that respect.
So you mentioned how Anthrocon is really big, specifically in Pittsburgh, and how you guys were kind of molded together and stuff. Talk about Fernando's. How did that happen? That the restaurant, everyone knows the restaurant.
When Anthrocon first showed up in Pittsburgh, we were not sure. We hadn't met the city yet. We thought, the tradition had always been furries would show up and the people would pull the shutters closed and peek out from behind them. What is this weirdness? What are all these strange animals doing walking around out here? When I got up on the first morning of the convention, very early, as old people tend to do, I went downstairs and to the lobby of the hotel. And when I walked outside, I noticed that somebody had taken sidewalk chalk in the middle of the night and drawn paw prints that were leading from the door of the hotel across the street and around the corner. And curiously, I followed them and they led to a little sandwich shop called Fernando's. And I wasn't the only one who noticed. And when the Anthrocon attendees saw that, they just went wild. Fernando sort of became our first friend in Pittsburgh, the first one to throw the door open and say, come on in. So he occupies a very, very, very precious place in the collective heart of Anthrocon.
So Fernando's. Okay, so you have been involved in the furry fandom for a very, very long time. How has the fandom affected you personally?
I get asked that question a lot, and typically the question usually implies, has it ever been a problem? Has it ever affected you? The answer to that is absolutely not. People who say, oh, I'm afraid to tell people that I'm a furry, my response to that is, you're here for the wrong reasons then. I am rabidly proud of this community. I am thrilled to be a part of it. There are so many amazing and beautiful things that furry fandom has to offer. I can't help but brag about it. And when people ask me about it, my response is extremely enthusiastic. At no time have I ever been embarrassed or ashamed simply to be a furry. And in that respect, nobody has ever gotten the impression from me that there's anything to be embarrassed or ashamed about. So my reactions from people have been overwhelmingly positive. My entire circle of friends, in fact, is furry now. I think just about everybody that I know and I'm close with, I have gotten to know through furry fandom. It's not something I keep secret. I don't parade around at work with a giant sign that says I am a furry, but I don't hide it if somebody wants to ask me about it. To give an example, a job that I left not terribly long ago, nobody had really asked me about it. The topic had never come up. So when I left, one of the people that I'd become very close with, I told her I was leaving, and she, hugged me, and she was sad and got a little tearful. But I pulled out a little piece of paper, and I had written my YouTube address, which is UncleKage at YouTube. And I said, I'll tell you what, when you get home, don't bring this up at work, but when you get home, go check this out. All secretive, all hush hush. And she looked at me and she said, oh, honey, we've known about UncleKage since you joined the company. There was only one time when somebody kept pushing, this is all about perversion and all that, isn't it? Come on, admit it. And I sighed and I looked at him and I said, we've known each other for 5 years. Is that honestly what you think of me? And I just turned and walked away. He came and apologized later.
That proves it. Don't mess UncleKage, because you will always have a better comeback than what you can think of.
I do what I can.
I wanted to ask a little bit about your panel work and being into the news and stuff. What is that like? Have you ever been so nervous for a panel that you just kind of backed out last second? Or I know there was one you did I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, and you say in the first 10 seconds, I didn't know I was doing this at about 15 minutes before I walked in that door. Where does that confidence come from?
I honestly don't know. I do know that my late father had quite a sense of humor, and my mother is a naturally gifted storyteller. I think that my mom taught me to tell stories. My father taught me to make people laugh. And the rest of it, I guess, I don't know, there's confidence in there somewhere. And I guess it just comes to the forefront. Maybe it's fed by stage fright, because no matter what, whether I'm going out on stage in front of 2,000 people or getting up on camera on a news show or even on a podcast like this, there's always the butterflies. There's always the pre-show nervousness. That never goes away. But I think that this is hardly an authoritative answer. It's only my opinion. I believe that successful performers have learned to utilize that energy, that energy that's building up inside in the form of nervousness and fear. You can harness it and throw it back out there as confidence. It seems to work. That's a wild guess that I'm giving. I'm just saying that sounds really cool and really sciencey, so we'll go with that.
Really cool and real sciencey. If you asked me to describe yourself in 4 words, that's how I would do it.
Thank
Because
you.
you mentioned in our total 8, and this is not, by the way, our second time of recording, because I may or may not have lost the file. About like putting sciences in boxes, and like you're trying to describe what you do, and just like putting science in boxes. I found it so funny because my name is Get in the Box, so I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So finally, UncleKage, what advice would you give to younger furs or furs who have just started in fandom?
Don't be afraid to come up and say hello. To me, to any of the folks that are celebrities in our fandom, ours is, we use the term fandom, but it is more appropriate to say that we are a community. We are an extended community, and we are a very welcoming community. At no time should you have cause to feel that you are not welcome or that we don't want you here. That's just how we are. So be yourself, relax, hang out. The chances are very, very good that if you hang out with enough furries, you will realize that you have a lot more in common with more people than you ever imagined.
That was wonderfully said. And UncleKage, before I let you go, where can people find you online?
Usually sitting staring at my computer, but I have a YouTube. Actually, I have 2 YouTube channels. The happy, bouncy, entertainment, clowny UncleKage channel, which is UncleKage, and a very slightly more serious science channel, which is Samuel Conway, PhD. It sounds very hoity-toity and harsh. I'm on Twitter as UncleKage, and that pretty much is the extent of my social media presence. I never could get the hang of this, Facebook time and Telegraph and all that stuff you kids seem to like to use.
Telegraph. I loved how you did when you did the fancy tie thing. I did it too, and it was just like, but I did the bow tie thing, and I was like, very fancy.
I can do either.
UncleKage, thank you so much for coming on the show and having a chat with me. This has honestly been amazing. I put a bit of a feeler out there on Twitter a while ago asking for suggestions, and one person was like, you are never going to get UncleKage on your show, and here we are. So,
well, okay, this is specifically for that person. Well, I'm here. Yeah, sucks to be you.
And as always, if you want to follow the show online, our Instagram is furry.trashpod, Twitter is ftrashpod, and our YouTube, which, if you're watching this, the button to subscribe is right there. Just do it. Just press the button. It takes 2 seconds. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, thank you for listening to us on Spotify. UncleKage, again, like I said, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I hope you have a wonderful day.